But why Christ said he had overcome the world. So when separation of soul and spirit occurred, soul began to function on her own, and she was no longer directed by spirit. And that's what happened to every one of us. That's the way we are the ones now that are waking up to that spirit within us. That spirit of God is, that God breath within us is beginning to wake all of these things up within us. So that snake was talking to the woman was not a slithering snake. It was the mind separated from the Spirit of God saying, my senses are going to define reality to you. And it's a hard thing, isn't it? It's a hard thing not to let your senses define your reality. When you get your checkbook and you're looking at your checkbook, that seems like reality. Yeah. You know, when you get a report from the doctor and he's had all this education and, you know, you go into those sterile offices where they're all so, you know, they have the authority. It seems like truth, doesn't it? Yeah. But you're called to a higher dimension. You're called to rise above what those things that look real in this world and to live in a world of the invisible realm that Jesus Christ said, as long as you live by the senses, you're going to have tribulation. You're going to have doctor reports. You're going to have famine. You're going to have war. You're going to have all those things. But be of good cheer. I don't see that stuff any longer. I've come above it. I've overcome the belief system that you are entangled with. I've overcome what that snake said to that soul. I have come back into perfect balance of male and female, and you can too. You know, I keep seeing that pattern, son. You know, when you cut out a pattern, it's not the fullness of what's coming. Jesus Christ said, greater things are you going to do, because there was a greater fullness coming on planet Earth. And I know that sounds to the religious ear like I am speaking heresy. But he said it. I didn't. He said, greater things are you going to do. And he said, it's better that I go. It's better that you don't look at this one man standing here in the flesh and just worshiping this one man. Because when I go, my spirit is going to come within you and you are going to be me on planet Earth and you are going to do those greater things. You know, that's a powerful thing. It's better that I go. Can you imagine how those disciples felt after going for 3.5 years and being with him and just watching him and emanating him? And now they're on their own. But he said, I'm sending you the Comforter. I'm sending you my Spirit. The Spirit of the Father that helped me do those things, I'm going to awaken that within you, and you're going to be able to do the same thing. Because he laid down his divinity, didn't he not, to come to planet Earth? So did you. Yes. In all points, we are like the Christ. Yes. And what did he come to do? And I was trying to tell this group yesterday. He came to demonstrate your infinite potential and limitless possibilities in your life. I mean, when we look at Jesus Christ that way, we worship him for what he did, but it's not just one man. I mean, that I know that sounds, but it's the truth. He said, why would he have gone in the first place? You know, but anyway, so the snake is saying, my senses will define reality. And you know what she said? Okay. She said, okay, I'm gonna live. Only thing that happened to them were their eyes were open. So what were their eyes open to? They were seeing. They weren't knocking into trees in the garden. They were seeing. Their eyes were open to the physical realm and closed. They were put to sleep to the spiritual realm and they were open to the physical realm. So the mind was no longer controlled by the spirit. Now it was under the control of the soul. And that's the world that you were born into. A mind controlling this world by the soul and not the spirit. And now what's happening to us is we are reversing that in our life. We are having a spirit that is going to begin to control the soul and be in balance with the soul. And we're going to listen to that, instead of listening to that voice of the snake all the time, you know, with those questions and questioning God. See, Jesus Christ, and I'm getting ahead of myself again, he came back and he went into the wilderness, and every single thing that Adam denied and woman denied, he came and said, they keep saying, if you be the Son of God. Well, he never doubted it. See, Eve doubted. The soul doubted. But Jesus didn't doubt. Every single one of those things he did in the wilderness, when Satan came and took him to the tall building, you think he was jumping on top of buildings? Hello, that is an allegory. That is a story to tell us bigger truth. It was up here in this higher place that he was hearing that same snake. And that same snake was telling him, but what did he do? He showed us that we can overcome that snake. We can overcome that doubt. We can overcome that voice of the accuser of the brethren. We can overcome that thing that says we're not qualified to be divine. We're not qualified to do the things Jesus Christ did. We're not qualified to live in abundance. We're not qualified to be healers. We're not qualified to change the world. We're not qualified to bring the higher energy to all humanity. We're just these little nothings. It's not true. It's not true. See, there's that voice that is trying to keep us down, but it is not truth. So remember the woman, the snake mentality said, you won't die if you eat that mixture. And we still think that today. We still think we can eat a little of this mixture of good and evil. We can dip into what humanity's in and we won't die. You will. See, there's a people that are arising that are going to really not get into duality. They're going to see really the truth. And that's why we're starting with people. Instead of seeing the duality in people, it says we are to see people after the Spirit of God and love. So anyway, the soul rejected the carnal mind instead of the Spirit. And the problem in the world today, remember, and I'm going to read this again, the serpent was more subtle above every beast of the field which Jehovah God had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that God has said, is she eat of every tree of the garden? Challenge, do you really believe what God said? That's the same challenge we have today. Do we really believe what the Spirit of God is telling us through this book, what the Spirit of God is telling us inside of ourselves? When God tells you to do something, do you really believe it, or do you start questioning it? When you see a revelation in this book that shoots all your paradigms and shoots all your belief systems, can you believe it? Or do you challenge it? Why Jesus Christ had the temptation, but he never doubted. See, that's the difference. He came with that mind, and that's why it says we now have the mind of Christ. He demonstrated the very mind of God. Did he not? He said, I and the Father are one. It pleased the Father that the fullness, what does that mean to you? Partially? A little bit? A little spoonful? It says it pleased the Father that the fullness of the Godhead dwelt in Christ bodily. And it says that he put this Spirit in earthen vessels. That's you. But guess what? It's all humanity. The only thing is they're still in the Adamic sleep. And we're beginning to arise. We're beginning to wake up. We're not fully awakened, but we're really beginning to wake up. Is anybody cold on this side? Okay. So anyway, so the soul was given an opportunity to explore the activity of the mind without the input of the Spirit. And what's happened? We've seen a world of that. What we have seen is the soulish realm just going into knowledge. You know, you can be Albert Einstein, but most people that really get into knowledge, they awaken to the spiritual aspect of God. They have to see it, and still be totally asleep to the Spirit. So when the snake deceived the woman, it deceived all of mankind that has been born of that woman. And the snake speaks of superior wisdom. Ever think about what's on a medical fraternity? What is it? It speaks of that superior wisdom. But what are they doing? They're practicing medicine, are they not? They're practicing the knowledge of sensory, because there's a greater way of healing. And it's that spiritual healing, isn't it? That the way that Christ did it. So anyway, so the snake's voice of the natural mind challenging the Spirit in your garden for control of your mind. How many of you are still having that challenge today? How many of you still have a snake in your tree that's challenging you, wanting you to believe all this natural stuff instead of the spiritual stuff? Trying to keep you. You know what I was telling those people yesterday too? You know, in Revelation, when the Son was born, he's born, a woman brings forth the Son up in heaven, isn't it? But then all of a sudden, that Son is brought right back down to earth. You know what does it? It's a belief system. It's the belief system that we come in here, you know, with these minds. Little children, you know, they say, I can be what do you want to be? An astronaut? What do you want to be? President? They have no boundaries. But then as we start to grow, those boundaries begin to come in, don't they? And we begin to be brought back down to earth instead of being up here in heaven where all things are possible with God.